Our recording's live, just so everybody knows.
There's my back.
Yeah, I just turned it on.
Thank you.
Hey, no, we're
I
thought I never turned it off.
told the mayor that I would go on that. When y'all hit start on that?
Yeah.
We've already got the,
That way you can get Wesley's screen with those other two cameras. Sounds, I heard it's not great, but I think it's not fast.
Ask these guys,
So that's one plus added versus the other one.
does he need for the overhead, does he need to stand up there, or what?
No.
Read the extra.
You can go on right now. Unless you just want to be like Van on.
no, not really. Okay, I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order, this Education Ad Hoc Committee, 6 o'clock on February 23rd, 2023. Where are we? We'll leave this in our order for it.
Father, how thankful we are for such a beautiful day as today. We give you all the praise and glory. We ask you now, as we conduct business here for this county, that you will give us the wisdom and provide guidance to us that the decisions we make will be those that are honorable and to your glory. We pray in thy name. Amen.
Okay, next item is approval of agenda. However, I'd like to add one thing, make it 4A1, meeting date change. This was only done as a, to meet Wesley's accommodations as far as that was concerned. The meeting date change, I would like to have every commission meeting day at 6 o'clock, so that this is not an extra day that we have to come. So it's just an hour before commission meeting is what I would like to do, and we'll vote on that and just vote, or we'll vote here in just a minute. I'm making the motion for that meeting date change, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on, because that was the original idea, was to have this on commission meeting day. So can I get a motion for that?
I'll, motion to add that to the agenda.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that's just adding it to the agenda. We'll talk about it later.
Bob, I got a question. Am I voting or not voting?
You're voting.
Voting.
Yeah, like I said, to clarify, our legal counsel is the only ones that are going to remain non-voting, because they will remain impartial to the proceedings, so that they can make decisions legally that will not be influenced by any vote that they would be casting. So, everybody else would be a voting member of this ad hoc committee. So, do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Okay, second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So I guess our first order of business is to vote on chairman and vice chairman. Anybody? I guess I would like to try and drive this ad hoc committee.
I'll nominate Robert.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, who would like to be vice chairman?
I nominate Mr. Terry Boyd.
Okay. Have a second on that? Collins got a second on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? And then the next one, like I said, is the meeting date. As I was talking about, this will be every commission meeting date, so that we don't have to come extra days. At 6 o'clock, prior to the commission meeting, which is at 7 o'clock. So that gives us a little bit of time in order to take care of that, but it also gives us convenience of not having another drive to this. So, I make a motion that we change the meeting date to that date. Okay, second?
Second.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those against? Okay. So that brings us to our presentation tonight. One thing that I would like to like we do is, Wes says, explain how BEP is driven, where the money is tied to, and then tell us where where the money is tied to. Just kind of give us
Sure.
so everybody can understand the driving force behind this change.
Okay, I've got, 4 handouts for everybody.
How long does it need this one?
If you're interested. And Chairman, I'll ask, I'm fine to take questions from anybody if y'all want to do it that way. So whatever y'all want to do.
Yeah.
I didn't know what you're talking about.
I need to check for the record.
Do we have a manager? Yeah, it's okay. I need a full set.
I'd like one.
For the record.
I've got a PDF.
They may model that I can watch it.
Yeah, I'll give you a set.
Have you got the PDF?
After the meeting.
Somebody got it.
Somebody in here is model.
I'll give it to you. I do.
You have these.
Monthly trade.
David said he's not going to try it out.
Thank you so much. So, meeting.
Just to clarify also, Wesley is going to give this to the IT department so it can be put on the website. And that we're going to try and do this as nicely as possible where you have the comments, you have the slideshow, and be able to work it that way.
Y'all want me to stand up? If you can't hear me, tell me, and I'll stand up.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to be the priest then. So my name's Wesley Robertson. I'm a field consultant with CTAS, but my background happens to be education finance. So I'm a bean counter by trade, but got my start in Murray County schools. I did that right out of college for a year. I thought I'd go work for the government. It just happened that way. And then went on and worked for the State Department of Education. Was one of those few people, you probably hear, there's only a few people in the state that knows anything about the DEP. Well, I was one of those people. Actually, the person who's there now is from Sumner County, Marion Thurston, followed me there in that role. Now Marion went on, I think she's like an assistant commissioner there now. But I left there, came to CTAS in 2011, I guess it was. So, I was joking with somebody before this started, I'm a mile wide and an inch deep on everything county government, but on this topic, I'm an inch wide and a mile deep, so you are lucky tonight, this is something I do know. So, BEP, I will try to get through this quickly because it's kind of over, TISA's here, but it probably would help if for those of y'all that don't know anything about the BEP, if you kind of understood a little bit why we're here and how we got here. Education funding's been driven by lawsuits for many years. And what's funny, back in the 80s, we had something called the Tennessee Foundation Program. And you know what kind of program the Tennessee Foundation Program was? It was a per pupil funding model, which is what we're going back to now. So it's just kind of interesting that we've come full circle in this time frame. But it was a per pupil model. Money went out per pupil for regular education, special education, and vocational education. So the money was per pupil, and it followed the kids of the school district just like that. And it was a flat amount. Every county in the state, school system in the state got the same amount. Well, this happened across the country. Small schools started saying, hey, this just isn't fair. Sumner County's getting the same flat dollar amount for their kids as Macon County, as Fentress County, as Trousdale County, and it's just not fair because our citizens drive to Sumner County and they spend all their money there. And then, you know, Sumner County's benefiting from that. So they're started this trend of what they call equity lawsuits. And the small schools sued all across the country, and they won. And all the states said, you know what, you're right. We've got to somehow balance this out. These tax dollars will go to the suburban county or the big four county where everybody goes to shop, where all the tax base is. And somehow we need to take that into account before we send the money out for education. So the small schools won in Tennessee, they were successful. The General Assembly said, okay. In 1992, they created the Education Improvement Act, which the BEP came out of. It was developed. The state increased sales tax at that time. You might remember the state also tried to create something else at that time, which is now it's constitutionally illegal, I guess, or not. Income tax came up then, and that didn't pass. So that passed, and we had the BEP, and we'll get into what changed. A lot of states just kept their foundation program and applied fiscal capacity, which we'll get into what fiscal capacity is. Fiscal capacity is the same with BEP as it's going to be with TISA. So none of that will work any different. It's going to be the same. There were other additional legal challenges. The small schools would see something in the BEP that they didn't particularly care for. They sued. And in the 2000s, they won again, and there were some tweaks to the BEP, and I'll show you those shortly. In 2007, the state was doing really well. And about the mid-2000s across the country, the big school systems started threatening lawsuits. And their lawsuits were adequacy. Hey, the small schools sued because it wasn't fair, it wasn't equitable, but now the big school systems are saying, you're just not putting enough money into education. We're having to pump in all this local money to offset what you're not doing enough of, state. So they began to threaten a lawsuit. So it was then Governor Bredesen brought in BEP 2.0, but that was in 2007, and what happened? Just what did we see coming right about that time? It was the recession. They put in about $500 million that first round. It would have taken about $1 billion to fully fund BEP 2.0. Well, it didn't happen. We went into a recession for 2 or 3 years. Governor Haslam came in. He continued to try to push for fully funding BEP 2.0. He wasn't successful because at that point in time, the small schools were then saying, oh no, you can't go this way, it's too good for the big districts, we got to have some balance here. So at some point, I think, right here, 2016, the General Assembly said, okay, we're going to freeze our implementation of BEP 2.0 and keep it at 50-50. And you'll see what I mean by that here in just a second. So the BEP, what I've given you is Sumner County Schools BEP calculation. And when I teach this, I've taught this a lot. I've taught it small counties, big counties. People talk about the BEP being complicated and confusing. I'm telling you, and you're going to think, well, that's easy for you to say. You calculated it for umpteen years. It's easy for you. Not this sheet, but there's a sheet that's stable, and it's got about 4 pages in it. The calculations are very straightforward. This is simple arithmetic on this page. Now, it does take, you've got to sit down and look at it for a few minutes, but the math is pretty straightforward. The Tennessee Department of Education calculates that total dollar amount. And before the BEP, when we were under the foundation program, this didn't exist. All we did was calculated a total dollar amount, and everybody got sent a flat amount. Fiscal capacity it takes into account how wealthy or poor, from a tax-based perspective, your county is. So that gets applied, and that's done by TASER, which is the state agency, Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations. And UT, I put a B in here because I did have it as SEBR, but for years it was SEBR, but now it's BSEBR. Anybody know what the B is? Center for Business and Economic Research.
Boyd.
That's right. When you give him a whole lot of money, he's my boss now, I guess.
Right.
You get your name in front of it. So now it's the Boyd Center for Economic Research. Those two statistical groups calculate this fiscal capacity formula. That goes to the State Department of Education, and they apply it to the 70-30 split that we'll see in a minute. This right here, which is what you see on those sheets, this is not what people say is confusing and all the political fighting is about education funding in Tennessee. It's this right here. But this gets blamed for it. This right here is where the rubber meets the road. Because that first box I showed you, this is the size of the pie. That seabird is how the pie gets split up. So anytime we want to make some kind of change to education funding in Tennessee, it's all about changing the pieces of the pie. So when that happens, if you're going to change, if I'm going to get a smaller piece of the pie, well, nobody's ever going to get a smaller piece of the pie. So what do they have to do to make my portion of the pie to keep me happy?
Bigger pie.
That's got to be a bigger pie. So that's what, every time we have some kind of big change, and I'm not in here spilling the beans or anything, this is pretty well known. Anytime there's some kind of big change in education funding, they've got to pump a whole lot of money in it, because when they change this, somebody's going to be a loser if they don't put a whole lot of money in it. And that's no secret. So the BEP is driven by membership. TISA will be the same way too. Back on this, TISA is going to be the exact same way, but it's going to use the exact same statistical formulas to decide how wealthy or poor you are here in Sumner County from a tax basis. ADM is going to drive, it drove the BEP and it's going to drive TISA, and that's average daily membership. That's basically enrollment in your school district. And salary and benefits and unit costs play into it. We'll see that here in a minute. I want to move on through. So where's the money generated in the BEP? 80% of it's salary and benefits, which probably ties pretty directly to what their budget looks like or their expenditures look like. It's probably salary and benefits for the most part.
Is there a breakout between administrative and?
A little bit, yeah, we can. Not in that, but you'll see it in the detail in the sheet I sent you. It'll show you what they get for principals and their director of schools. This is the BEP split. When the BEP was first created in 1992, we only had classroom and non-classroom. Those further suits of the small schools created the instructional component, and then just in the last 2 or 3 years, they created instructional salary component. And we'll look at that just in a minute. Now, TISA will not have any of this. TISA is all going to be 70-30, and there's just really one component. Well, there's two. There's a base component, and then there's going to be some direct funding, which we'll see shortly. So you would see this on that sheet that I've given you, the very first row on the sheet that's got all the little numbers. It's going to be every K through 3 child here in Sumner County. And what's y'all's numbers? Somebody throw it out. I'm sure it's many more than 431.
31,000. Oh, you're talking about, K through 3 is 8,773, is that right?
8,000 plus K through 3 kids in Sumner County. And that grouping, K through 3, is funded 1 teacher for every 20 kids. So this particular example is 431 kids. So we'll take the 20, divide it into 431, and we get 21.5 positions is what Sumner County is going to be funded. They are getting many more than that, but in this example, it's what they would be getting funded for K through 3. 4 through 6, it's funded 1 teacher for every 25 kids. 313 divided by 25 is 70 positions.
Are those ratios consistent statewide?
They are. So those are set.
They dropped it on students, because it used to be 35. I remember 35 is what I.
Well, no, this is a funding ratio. Now, class size requirements are a little more than these.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, that's, we'll talk about one inadequacy of this, even though it doesn't matter now because it's gone. But one problem is, these kids, you're funded at the district level. And anybody have any idea where that could run into an issue here? the kids come in perfect bunches of 20s and 25s.
What more schools you got to work?
But there's other educational policy state laws that say, I've got to have one teacher for this many kids. It has no correlation to this law that says we're going to fund you 1 to 20. So, let's jump around here. Is that okay? So, school A, we got 10 kids, that requires a teacher. School B, we have 10 kids, that requires a teacher. Now, you're probably going to manage this better, and that's probably not going to happen, but theoretically, it could. The school system's going to get 1 teacher funded, but they're having to pay for 2 teachers. So that was one problem with the DEP. Trousdale County has 3 schools in the county, elementary, middle, and high school. Their numbers are probably going to work out better. If theoretically y'all had 1 elementary school, 1 middle school, and 1 high school, it would probably work out better for you, but that's not feasible either. Y'all stop me and ask questions if you have questions. So total positions, and then we're going to be funded at this DEP instructional salary amount for each of those positions. Everybody in the state is funded that same instructional amount.
Is that per school?
Per position.
You know, the total salary allocation, not per school?
That's a system-wide. This is not, the numbers in this presentation are not Sumner County numbers. Those are in the sheets I've given you. I should have made them, I should have tied them together, but I didn't.
Wait, I have a question.
Yep.
What about benefits? Is that in the 48, are we assuming that 48 covers benefits?
It's in there also. You'll see it on that sheet for the slide. I didn't want to
No,
make
no,
it too big.
no.
But yeah, there's a benefit line in there as well. So, total allocate, and when BP first was created in 1992, the State Department of Ed calculated an average salary amount for every school system in the state. So every school system had their own salary amount here. So a small rural system was funded $30,000. If Sumner County paid more, maybe they were paying $40,000. Sumner County would get funded $40,000. That small school got funded $30,000. That generated some of those other lawsuits. Small school said, whoa, are you kidding me? You're going to fund me $30,000 and Sumner County $40,000, and they were successful in the BEP change, and that instructional component was created to kind of track that. So everybody's funded the same dollar amount now. No, well, the new formula is gone. Yeah.
The ADM calculation, is it a point in time, or is it an average, or?
That's a good question. So in the BEP, it's periods 2, 3, 6, and 7, which is, I think there are, some educator can tell me there are 9 20-day periods in the school year.
10, okay.
10, yeah, there's 9 instructional days, 180 days. So it's like the 2nd month, the 3rd month, the 6th month, the 7th month, and those are weighted 12.5, 20 or 30%. It adds up to 100%. That's all going to change with TISA. They're now going to look at all 9 of those instructional periods and to come up with the ADM amount. What I got lucky. I got to work with a lot of folks who were around when BEP was created, and what they told me was there was a lot of research done on what periods to look at, and they felt like those early periods are pretty volatile. Kids can be in and out, so that's why they didn't want to weight those early periods as much as they did those 6th and 7th periods. Does that make sense?
So that we get all the sicknesses and moving and all that.
So let's talk fiscal capacity just a little bit. The TASSER model was the original model that was created in '92. TASSER did a lot of work to create the DEP as well with the Department of Education. The big 3 pieces of this one that we'll talk about is the value of your property, your gross sales, and per capita income. Those are really the three big ones that drive this model. And that's what your property's worth, not what you tax your property. It's your gross sales, not what you tax your sales, but your gross sales, and then your per capita income.
Now, the property assessments are lagged, right, 1 or 2 years in arrears, or is that, would they do the current year property assessment value?
Yeah, it would be whatever's current that the property assessors reported to the DPA. These two organizations go to the DPA, which is the Department of Property Assessment, and they gather that data, which your property assessor would have reported to them. And then the Seaver model is property and sales. So Bill Fox, who developed this, y'all may know Bill Fox, he's one of the gentlemen that, I think he's retired now, but I think he still works for the state on the funding board, and they develop what they think the state's going to grow in revenue every year, and they set that, and then the General Assembly goes out and decides how they're going to spend all that money. But Dr. Bill Fox developed this model, and what he said was, we don't need to take into account income, because we don't have an income tax in Tennessee. He said, all we need to look at is property and sales. So that was the big rub between this one and Vassar. This all changed when BEP 2.0 came about, but it's still going to be here today. And the small schools began to figure out immediately that not having per capita income in the model hurt them, because their per capita income was less. In these models, do you want to look poor or do you want to look rich? Poor. You want to look poor so the state will send you more money.
In the feds.
Yeah, well, this is going to drive the states, but the small schools, when BEP 2.0 came out, they quickly realized, hey, we look better off with the Fox formula, and they weren't happy with it. But it passed, and it's still here today. But that's the big rub with Vassar and Seaver and fiscal capacity. So I'm jumping all around, so I apologize. I need to talk fiscal a little bit. So Vassar and Seaver gets applied to these percentages, and these are the averages. What's Sumner County's percentage at the bottom of that first page? I suspect y'all are better than 70%. 74.81. So y'all are poorer than the average, is what that's telling me. Because you're getting 74% state, and the average in the formula is 70%. So that's good. That's good. Just for reference, Davidson County's like 50-50 on that one. But Williamson County, they're probably like 60-40 on that component. Actually, I'm a little surprised they were 74%. I would have thought y'all's tax base would have been more than that. But that
Could you still records affect that?
That changed.
We got a lot of residential versus commercials, probably like that.
Well, it could be.
That's where it's at, we're hurt big time on non-residential property.
I don't think I have these
Trying to keep
indices
reduced.
in that chart to show
A
you.
lot of large industry.
Everybody, what those formulas create is your percentage of the state's total worth. Just to give you some perspective, Shelby County makes up about 16-17% of 100. Sumner County, I could pull it up here in a minute, but I don't have it in this presentation. It's probably like, I don't know, 1 or 2%. So that index is your percent of the total state worth, is what they're figuring there. So it's your total property values of gross sales, that kind of thing.
How
how do you determine what your per capita income is if we don't have to allocate income tax return?
They're pulling that from a national census report.
Okay.
Yeah, I could probably pull it up and tell you what it is, but it's from a national publication. I think they're estimating.
Based on the federal tax return?
They're using it as their data source, but it's some federal report.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Okay.
Yes, and that you can find it.
Thank you.
I think that's right.
It's probably where they're pulling it from.
So we're studying 50/50. This happened in '07, it's still here, and it'll still be here with TISA. The state has agreed that, I think when they originally introduced TISA, was that last year that passed? They wanted to move to more Seaver, and the small schools threw enough of a fit where they said, you know, they knew it was close, it was passed by one vote. They said, okay, we'll stay at 50/50, because they wanted to get it passed. But, I mean, we could maybe see it move more to Seaver in the future. And this is the part we've already talked about, but down at the bottom of the page, it's going to apply your state percentage to those dollar amounts we calculated, and it's going to give you what you're going to get from the state. We talked about that inadequacy.
Who generates these numbers? Is that you? The state?
Your Sumner County Schools sends up their ADMs in monthly to the State Department of Education. They're analyzing them, blessing them, and then they get dumped into the... This is going to show you the adequacy issue really across the state now. It's pretty easy to see. The BEP generates 65,000 positions, and this is from 2020. School districts have 79,000 positions statewide, so all those extra positions, they're funded out of pocket, every penny of it. BEP salary, 48,000, the average salary, 55,000, all that extra is coming straight from the county commission. It feels like I'm beating up on the state. I'm not. It's just, it's so blatant, it's easy to see.
That's the 26% you were referring to on the previous slides, the state page 74 on there, the county page, the 26.
Yeah, let me show you something else. I might show that a little better. So that 26% is this.
Okay.
That's what the state's kicking in. That's the total BEP. Locals are really putting this in.
But I think what you're saying is two things. They pay percent of the salary, but also the actual salary is lower, and the numbers than the actual people. So there's three things: percent, the actual salaries on average are higher than they're putting, and there's also more people than they're funding because of the rounding.
Yeah.
So there's really three drivers.
Yeah. Any questions on BEP? That was
I apologize, you mentioned it was there a formula for administrative staff too, a certain multiplier.
It's similar. Well, for superintendent, each county gets one superintendent. Principals and there's different counselor positions. Those ratios are in there.
Okay.
If you had multiple school districts in your county, which y'all don't, they would share that superintendent salary amount. It's kind of interesting. I don't know what that superintendent salary amount in there is. It might be 90 or 100.
125.
125. So that would get spread amongst multiple school districts if you had them. This might be helpful for you. I don't think this will be much different with TISA. Now, I have heard school systems haven't got much information on TISA yet. Now, I did hear that the department's going to try to get some estimates out soon, because y'all are in the middle of budget. You kind of need to know what's going on, but that's nothing new with education funding. The department would put out their first they called it a BEP estimate in April. They would put out a BEP estimate in May, a BEP estimate in June. They wouldn't give the school system their final BEP number until July. Well, heck, most counties the budget's done at that point in time, or you hope it is. What is there to do about that? I don't know, because we're, enrollment for that school year is going into the calculation. Well, we gotta get the school year done, so we know what the enrollment is, so it just is what it is. We just gotta do the best we can.
So can we go back, because I know you and I have discussed it with the BEP and our MOE, and if you could inform everyone else, that it's not just our county, it's every county. But one of the questions I still have in follow-up to that is, it wasn't that way in the beginning. Did we, when BEP was in, when did we take that huge jump, all of the counties to over the BEP? If you could address that.
Yeah, when that started to change, I don't know. We could look at the data and try to see when that started to happen. These two laws mean that you as a county commission have to give the schools the same dollar amount that you gave them the year before. You don't have to give them any more, but you have to give them the same dollar amount that you did the year before. If they're losing enrollment, you could make a reduction. So there is a way to make a reduction, and it goes to a per pupil calculation. If you're losing enrollment, you could make a reduction.
And then the county commission actually determines the estimates of the local revenue too.
Yes, yes.
You guys determine what you think sales tax will bring and what you think property tax will bring.
You're
Statutorily authorized to determine that.
So are we properly funding the schools on these BEPs?
And we can, one of the sheets I gave you all is your MOE test.
The matching, yeah.
It's,
I think it was a one-page number, was it? I don't have a copy.
y'all are putting in $126
Oh,
million.
yeah, well, there's like one company color on it.
The BEP calculated your local match to be $70 million. Now, you might see that and think, oh, shoot, what have we done to ourselves? That gap is the same in every school system across the state, and it's just a creation of probably many factors, but some of them we've already talked about. Hey, you know, if I got 10 students here and 10 students here, there's another state law that says I've got to have a teacher for those students. So the school board has to provide a teacher there. Could it be that big, or could it be smaller? Maybe it could be smaller, but those types of things have made that gap grow over the years. And I've got a chart I could pull up and show you, and we could see what the percentage is for every school system in the state, and their difference, the percentage above what they're required to do. It's huge numbers.
So are we taking these numbers and then dividing them by how many schools there are in Sumner County and how much each school is getting?
No, that's a school board decision is where that money goes.
So in essence, just so I understand, we as county commissioners give the school board a pot of money, if you will, and it's up to that district to shape that pot how they see fit.
Yeah. I mean, if it's federal money, they probably it's tied to certain schools, but local money, it's purely up to that school board to decide what they want.
And they can go above the BEP ratio requirements for student-teacher ratios,
Yeah.
counselors, whoever. Yeah.
And how many of y'all came to Coop? If you're new, how many were at Coop? Okay. And y'all were in with Ben Rogers, I was in with the mayor, so okay.
Are the county schools, are they sophisticated enough to break out the difference in MOE level and BEP required local match with the two buckets you gave of number and salary? Like what's a bigger driver? Is it number of teachers, is it salary, just so we can get you said it's those two components, right?
What do you think, David? I don't know, that might
It'd be hard for them to do, especially if the numbers flow through, you got to think changes in positions during the year.
I don't know, they might cost center their budget to the school level, but I don't know, would that be teachers, you think? Maybe just utilities?
Couldn't you just easily take, hey, the BEP is funding 1,000 teachers, we've got 12. The BEP, like, could the county do that?
I think Dr. Phillips may have showed that on some of those slides in the past, the number of positions versus BEP. But I wouldn't swear to that, I think.
They could tell you how many positions they have above the BEP.
Yeah,
they could tell you that. Well, I could tell you that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think he's had this on slides before.
I like to drill down on the one.
Yeah, like those 200 teachers we have above the BEP.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could tell you that.
I guess he's wanting to know if the extras, the salary difference is driving, or the number of positions funded is driving, or the percentage.
Correct, yeah, it's probably a little bit of both. is
We
what
got to
I'm
think you've
saying.
got 47 schools, so those odd-out positions are going to drive a lot of it, in a case from this size, by
Yeah.
itself. And then, we live in an area that's slightly average, above average on cost of living, so it's probably going to drive your teacher salaries too. That's why I think that formula really area, a state like Middle Tennessee, on average, is 5 to 6% more expensive than East Tennessee was in. They're not really accounting for that, but,
No, they did it at the beginning, and then,
so really it's less equitable if you ask me, but they're not asking all.
so MOE, same revenue as the year before. It's not a one-time pass-fail test. We've had commissions want to do this, hey, we'll need MOE when we pass the budget, then we're going to come in and amend our budget down, right, the next month. Can't do that.
What happens if you amend it up?
Amend it up, you're
You
stuck there.
stick to the new, that's what I think is on your, you don't want to amend it up, if you want to leave your MOE.
Now, I've been on both sides of this. Williamson County probably amends theirs up every year, but they're growing similar to y'all probably. If they need the money, if they're growing, if they're opening a school, something's going on, they are bringing in a huge amount of whatever new revenue, and you know it's gonna be there, then I would be okay with amending it up. But if you're not sure it's gonna be there, you just need to be conservative on how you look at amending it up. David, I don't wanna tell them anything you don't want me saying.
My thing is, actual, two things, when you do your budget, you want to be conservative, because if you over-project it, then they actually punish the school system. They're short the money, and then the school make a BP reserve to basically punish them. It is one part, so you wouldn't want to come in and exaggerate your revenues, but at the same time, if you get extra and you increase it in the year, that becomes your new BP. So if you actually have it under, don't increase it, their BP still last year amount, even if they bring more in. So you can adjust, reallocate revenue or whatever.
This is your MOE test.
It's on idea.
I don't know if y'all can tell me that, look at your sheet, but it's a budget comparison. Looks like in the current year, fiscal year, 22-23, y'all gave them $126,592,554. Does that sound in the ballpark?
I think that's correct.
Now, it looks like last year, y'all started out giving them 112, and it got amended up to 122 in the middle of the year. Does that sound?
First time they've amended in many years.
Yeah. You collected 125 this year, so you're still $3 million more than you budgeted to them. But yeah, if you amend it up, you're stuck at that dollar amount.
Is Sumner County fully funded by IDEA, like, I know in California, IDEA funding, which is federal.
Yeah.
Okay, they're only funding about 28%. Is it funding fully in Sumner County?
IDEA.
They're getting some of that.
Are they getting the fully funded?
Usually they go to state schools, some to the special education, something like that.
Yeah, they would get some IDEA funding, but I don't know what you mean by fully funding. They're getting what the
So
IDEA.
California would say I'm just picking $1 million, but they're only getting like $270,000 of the million that is allocated. The federal government's not fully funding IDEA in that state, or Nevada, or Texas. I'm curious as.
I've never heard that, I don't know. I don't know how the federal formula works, other than when it gets here, I know it's shared evenly amongst every district. That's your MOE test. This will not be any different under TISA. These laws didn't change, so this will work exactly the same.
So next year, going in to the fiscal year, we're looking at, what, 120,
126.
592, 554?
Which, unless they were losing kids, I don't think y'all are losing kids here. It's pretty flat, yeah. Anything on MOE? I'm trying to keep us moving here. Y'all keep asking questions, so. Let's see. BEP committee. There is a BEP review committee. I don't know if they're gonna have something similar with this or not. This committee was created in '92. It was made up of county mayors, city mayors, county commissioners, city aldermen, school folks, directors of schools. It was a broad group of people. So Speaker of the House, Speaker of the Senate had an appointee on here, the governor had appointees on here. They would get together, do work every year, and decide what needed to be offered up to the General Assembly as an improvement to the BEP. These were some of the last ones. This, number one, COVID happened, enrollments did what everywhere? Y'all probably dropped here. Everywhere it dropped. Williamson County lost like 2,000 or 3,000 kids. Well, we could have come to you all and said, hey, y'all can make a massive MOE reduction. And that probably wasn't the right thing to do, because those kids were going to come back, and I think most of them probably have come back. The state agreed and said, you know what, we're not going to cut BEP funding, so locals, we don't want y'all to cut your local effort. So that was in place for, I think, 2 years during COVID, and that's come off the books now, so we're back to the point where if you did lose kids, you could make a reduction. They would make similar funding recommendations, you know, that teacher salaries being not at the southeast average was a big deal for a while. And then they would want to lower some of these ratios. RTI, school counselors, school nurses was a big deal during COVID. So they would make these recommendations, and then it could change the ratios on those sheets that you're looking at. Really, I thought the BEP was fine, but sometimes when you put a whole lot of, you're going to pump in $1 billion new dollars, you got to do something different. So, TISA, I think it's a per pupil BEP, less CTE. I think that's all it is. They took the BEP total dollar amount to come up with their base, they backed out CTE, divided by the total number of kids, that's their base amount. So, sure.
Who's gonna fund CTE?
It's gonna be a direct appropriation now.
Yeah, I think that's what we heard Bob on Tuesday night.
$1 million for high school.
From that presentation. We got 14 million for the CTE, I think.
So I will say, the calculation will probably be a little bit simpler. It's gonna be this. This will be what it looks like. Those 4 or 5 pages you've got in front of you now were the BEP. This is gonna become the TISA, TISA calculation. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say, on the CTE, what's gonna happen is that they're gonna allow for $5,000 per student that is enrolled in CTE. That's how they're gonna fund it, through the TISA program.
So this base amount up here, this 6860, they took the BEP total dollar amount, took out CTE, and divided by the total number of kids in Tennessee and came up with this base. They're gonna add to that, if the kid is economically disadvantaged, which has historically meant they qualified for free and reduced price lunch, concentrated poverty, small and sparse. And we can look up some of these definitions, but I don't really think you are going to have many that qualify for small or sparse. Those were very rural counties, and sparse was the proportion of your kids was not concentrated.
Will those be by school or by district?
It'll be a district.
So by district?
Yeah. So they're gonna fill in this yellow column. This is what they're telling me. I think when they send out these estimates in a few weeks, this is what it'll look like.
I anticipate that the TISA plus the CTE will be as good or better funding than we had under just basic BEP.
Well, they're putting $1 billion new dollars in, so you're gonna get more money.
Is it more weighted to the CTE, or is it, you think it's going to stay in the TISA?
Well, all this up here, and I'm sorry, I didn't go through this 1 through 10. This is special ed classifications. These will be just the same as you'll see on I think it's on the first page. You see option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down to option 10. Those are your special ed kids, and they're classified in one of 10 options. Those are those same options right there, so those numbers will be the same from BEP over here to TISA. You're gonna get a little more money for those kids. All of these calculations will have fiscal capacity applied, that 70-30 will be applied. This down here, they're calling it direct state funding, so they've got a K-3 literacy, 4th grade tutoring, CTE, charter, ACT. So you see here that CTE, $5,000 per kid, that is a direct state appropriation. And if that could be better for you or worse for you, depending on where you would fall on that 70-30 split. It might be a little, I'm shooting from the hip when I say this, it could be a little worse for y'all because you're 70-30 split, 74. No, it is a little worse for you. Yeah, if it was up there, you'd be getting 74%. But it's direct state too, so there's no local match associated with that portion of the.
And can you address that it's direct state for right now, but we don't know how long it's gonna be?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, they could change any of this any year at the General Assembly. I have not heard much about this getting touched this year. I noticed a couple of weeks ago, they and that just got done a few weeks ago on TISA. So I'm sure the department was waiting for that to happen before they started getting stuff out to school districts.
So the CTE funding, the $14 million for Sumner County, is that a one-time funding, or is that something?
It'll be annual.
Annual, okay.
For 4 years, though.
For 4 years?
Yeah, 4-year grant, yeah.
4-year grant?
Yeah.
I'm assuming it'll be there indefinitely, CTE funding.
No, he's talking about a grant that.
Oh, y'all got some grant?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The $500 million that Bill Lee set aside for CTE training for the next 4 years.
Okay, unrelated to this.
So we're
Okay.
In addition to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this CTE funding will be here indefinitely, unless they change something. But this will be what it looks like. Any questions on TISA?
Well, I have a question in general. You talked about the BEP Review Committee, and those are recommendations for additional funding so they can try to address things. But the state currently does, and I would like to know, I want you to clarify that and then answer about TISA, if you don't mind. Even though they give you this bucket of money, the school system can decide how, so they don't have to put $5,000 per kid per CTE. They don't have to pay for teachers. They can do whatever they want with it. And if that means renovating, I'm not saying this is being done, but I'm just saying that this is part of the problem we've had, because the governor will get up there during State of the State and say, we're giving this money for teacher raises, and the school systems don't have to give it for that. They can renovate their school board building.
Yeah, not to get too much into the weeds, but I mean, there are state laws that say they have to do certain things over there, like they've got to have a teacher for so many kids, they've got to do this, that, and the other, so they do have some guidelines, but it's all stuff they decide.
I think part of it, not to add to or take away from, but what I've noticed is, once they give that pot of money, I think that the magical language is this percentage is for classroom teachers, and the rest of it is just additional wealth for the district. So I may give you a pot of $5 million, 2% of that has to go to teacher salaries. And then whatever you've got left over, you can renovate or put new windows in if you want to.
Where is that documented in?
Yeah, I know.
I've never heard that a percentage has to go anywhere.
There's a state minimum teacher salary schedule.
Right.
Now, I'm sure Sumner County is well above those minimums.
And there's a minimum student-teacher ratio, so the
Yeah.
minimum salary times the minimum ratio,
Yes.
plus the benefits would give you the minimum amount that they have to use
Right.
for salaries. But they're gonna have to give more than that, but yeah, they would have to, they do have to meet the student-teacher ratio, and they do have to meet the minimum the salaries for BP, so there is technically a minimum amount that can be taken.
There was I think this started under Governor Bredesen, but it's continue, but they call it differentiated pay. Back, I guess that was early 2000s, they introduced differentiated pay. And this all happened about the time of collective bargaining. They didn't call it collective bargaining, but all that went away in K-12 education. But they started to, the governor would say, we're gonna give 3% increase in the BEP for teachers' pay. But what they started doing is not increasing that minimum salary schedule. When they increased that minimum salary schedule, it forced the LEA and the county to pass that raise along. Well, they started not doing that, and they said, districts, we want y'all to create differentiated pay plans. We want you to pay teachers more that'll go on to a low-performing school. We want you to pay teachers more that'll teach a certain subject. And they required them to have those differentiated pay for performance, differentiated pay, whatever you want to call it. So that trend happened, or began, and it's still been there. Now, I think Governor Lee, because what would happen was, the governor would get up and say, we're giving a 3% raise. Teacher would, might get a 2% raise. And they know their state reps and their senators, and they would start calling saying, what's going on here? Why am I not getting a 3% raise? And they started putting pressure on the administration to be more transparent, I guess, with that. So I feel like that's shifting back to, when we say we're giving teachers a raise, we expect teachers to get the raise. I guess we'll see how it'll play out.
But there's nothing there now, though, that says that money has to go there. It's just on a good faith-based effort.
They've still got that minimum schedule, but they're not increasing it necessarily the way it used to be increased, which was directly tied to that.
So again, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, again, it just goes back to that pot of money, and then that district decides how many administrators gets that money, and then if there's any left, it'll go to the classroom teachers.
Now, you'll notice in the state of state in the last handful of years, Governor Haslam was kind of got, I guess, encouraged to say it this way. They'll say, we're putting $100 million in teacher salary. We're putting $50 million. They're trying to get away from saying 2%, 3%, 4%.
The 3% won't cover a 3% raise because of the difference in the number of teachers, the difference in the
70-30 split. You're not even getting a full 3%. You're only getting 70% of the 3%.
And you're on that base too, which may be lower than what you're already paying them. And then there's the odd teachers out, and your ratios may be lower. So the 3% may technically only cover 1.5%.
So now, moving forward, every year, the Tennessee Department of Education would calculate all these factors on these sheets you're looking at, cost of textbooks, cost of supplies. LEA, school districts, would submit financial statements to the State Department of Education. They would get an average textbook cost, average supply cost, come up with all these figures that you see on these sheets. So they were tied to real life numbers. The only one on there that was backed into based on the amount of revenue the state had, it was one component. What do you think it would be? The biggest component. It's that salary number. That it makes up 80% of that formula, and it's the one we just, much like we do here. Hey, how much money do we think we're going to have to pass a raise on to county employees? I mean, you're kind of backing into that, and that's the same thing the General Assembly's done for 30 years. It's kind of back into how much of a raise we think we could pass on to teachers. Yeah, they were shooting for that southeast average, but, you can only do what you have money to do. So that's typically how it is.
When did the TISA numbers come out? I mean, what's the projection?
Yeah, I said we don't really know. We hope in a few weeks we'll get some figures.
So, I think, what she was talking about is that, I went to all these committee meetings and watched them, and they said that TISA is a funding, not a spending. So it's a funding, and they kept repeating this is a funding, not a spending, this is funding. And so I guess the question is like, and this is what I heard in committee, a child could be worth $14,000, and that's what that child is going to get, that this is going to get. But there, right now, and maybe it will change, there's really no concrete rules in place on how that $14,000 has to be spent on that child. So I even heard them say that that is how, there's a question asked, well, could they basically renovate their football stadium? And in essence, they had to admit that, well, yeah, they could, because there's no rules. So has that changed?
I don't know, the rules got approved like last week, I think it was, and I don't think there were much different that got introduced. I mean, they do have a lot of things they have to do by state law. I mean, they've got to have so many, teachers make up 85% of their budget. They've got to have so many teachers per kid. So I guess, could that happen? Maybe, but I don't, like that extreme example, I wouldn't think it's probably going to happen.
We may be confusing between capital things, which would be a football stadium, and operating budget, which is what the BEP is for. So, no, I don't think we can take money that was from the BEP and put it into a football stadium. That's a capital project.
Well, the BEP's got a non-classroom component.
And that's visible too. The urban areas are going to get more because they're growing.
That was the biggest problem with HISA, that was asked in the committee, was can this be used at? And they couldn't say no.
Well, I mean, so there are performance standards and requirements under the Tennessee Department of Education rules. So whatever they do with the money, if they don't show results or whatnot of like, I mean, those things are still, those aren't being revamped. Those have never been tied to BEP.
Yeah, correct.
But I think that I read regarding that now we've changed it. Originally, when I read about those and was following that, we were going to use it as a component, but now it's kind of like a bonus. If they meet these goals, we'll give them more.
Right.
But it's not they're not being held accountable for their pot of money for those.
And those are down here at the bottom. They've
So it is the
got
bonus?
outcomes, fast growing, and salary equity. But what I was told is, we won't get that
It's on 25.
until, because we've got to,
Show it.
we've got to measure it and decide who gets it.
But as far as the number of funding, have you seen the Sycamore Institute website or something? They've been estimating TISA funds per county, per school district. Have you
Yeah.
heard of that?
Yeah, I think they testified. They're a big proponent of TISA,
Oh, I don't know where they
Yeah.
stand, but they gave an estimate of it.
That sounded like I wasn't a proponent of it. I'm neither here nor there. I just don't think it's gonna, this is my editorial, I don't think it's gonna do
Change
much.
the world.
No, I mean, but,
So going back to the TISA Excel sheet you had, you may have closed it. The funding, so if you have a student that's gifted,
yeah.
which is classified as special ed in the state of Tennessee,
Yeah.
but they're also doing welding or shop or mechanics or whatever, does that school or that district, get two pots of money for that one
They get
child?
credit for that kid in every one of those categories. So on BEP, this non-classroom money, it could be spent here, here, or here. You can go up. Classroom could be spent here or here. This could be spent here. So what happened was, who pays for the most part, who pays for the schools when they're built? Is it coming out of the school budget?
It's designated to the county.
Yeah, through the county. So this money's getting spent up here. There's a state law that says a teacher can never make any less. So, I mean, once that money, we're talking about how did we get that, how did that gap grow? Schools weren't paying for their capital. There are some school districts that do some capital with it. David, you probably know as well as me from your audit experience. Most counties are paying for those big capital expenditures. It's not out of the school's budget. So that money would then get spent up here, and then once it gets up there, it's stuck up there.
You can never bring it back.
You can't bring it back down, unless if your county took a dip and started losing kids, and you could, through attrition, people could.
Debt services and then your MPV or your matching or any of these calculations, it's completely outside. So that $126 million doesn't include debt service payments made every year towards school.
Yeah.
So in theory, if we have certified staff, non-certified staff, getting pay raises every year, that raise can't come back down.
Down in the non-classroom, or?
Correct.
Yeah, no.
So once those raises are in place for classified staff or non-classified nurses or whatever,
Yeah,
that money's there.
yeah. And it's, I don't want you to think I'm blaming school systems anywhere, because I know a lot of those folks are good people, they're doing what they can do. They've got to hire people, and they're in a position where we can't hire teachers, and they're having to pay better. So they're pulling from down here, and once they've done that, it can never get back down there.
And I'm not trying to get you in the middle of a political arena, but I do like asking questions. So, on the CTE side, is the guidance counselors going to be expected to assist in the CTE since they're getting funding for CTE students and guidance by the ratio, by means of job placements and things of that nature? Or is
I don't
that changed?
I don't think that has changed that I'm aware of, but yeah, as far as like what happens in the school system.
Right, the description of that position. In other words, do we know, I guess, can a title be changed and it fit differently in the BEP or in TISA? Can we have two counselors, but it's really not a counselor, it's just a part-time counselor, and they help with CTE instruction?
So,
Like a shell game.
I think somebody said that's about TISA, the funding. That's been said about, that was a talking point for the BEP for 30 years. This is
Oh, I know.
a funding formula, not a spending plan to it. So that counselor got generated based on the number of kids, not because the school system had a counselor, needed a counselor. It had nothing to do with what's going on in the school system.
Gotcha.
Well, and just to clarify, the whole funding thing though was because now there's a certain amount that a child is worth based upon everything. So this whole, that they're saying, oh, now the money follows the child, in essence, it's not really following the child.
It's just in a pot.
Do we have the top number yet for this year? I mean, how much, I
I
know
think it's
that,
gonna be
you know,
that
it is
6860 is
well,
what
that's the
it was.
base.
Yeah.
So there's a top though, like Daryl asked about, could my child be in more than one option?
Yeah,
But I
so-
think there's a top, like 15,000 is the top I can get for a kid.
Oh, is it?
I've been reading. I mean, at one point
I don't know that. You might be correct.
I was reading somewhere, there is a top,
There's a
a
cap.
cap.
Well, so that brings us, is there data out there we can see how many special ed students that we have?
I'm assuming your school district's probably got this sheet filled out on what
Well,
they think it is, because the department sent them data a few weeks ago, and they asked all school systems to kind of bless the data and clean up the data and make sure it's right before they send out this first estimate. I don't want to put words in their mouth.
Sure.
I'm sure somebody over there is crunching numbers and has an idea of what's going to be coming in.
When are they supposed to have it back to us?
July.
Yeah,
July?
well, they hope to get an estimate out to LEAs,
How much do we expect the required matching to go statewide? I'm sure we'll be way past it because we're significantly past it right now, but I wouldn't think that'd be an issue.
yeah, so that was a hot topic as well for small rural counties who
Right.
didn't have as big a gap. There are some counties that are right at the 70, like, for their county, they're right at 70 million. So every year when the BEP puts more money in, their commission's got to give more money because the local match is 4%. Y'all got decades before you'd ever, if you ever do, catch up to that. So theoretically, if they dump 10 billion into the formula tomorrow, it might push you over 126.
They're not gonna change the matching percentages, really.
No, it's
We're good for
70.
years.
Yeah.
We've had such a buffer.
Did you guys talk about the whole harmless period?
Yeah, they're
That's
saying
weird.
they're gonna hold harmless some of those small counties that may get pushed over the edge
Right.
sooner. So, yeah, which shouldn't be an issue either. there's really probably only 3 or most there's a massive gap between what they're required to put in and what they do put in. And you know, I don't know everything going on here locally. It's not an uncommon frustration for county commissions and school boards not to get along. That is a common battle. You see it everywhere. But having said that, even, and I'm putting my head in the sand as to what's going on here. Having said that, even when those battles are going on, those county commissions do take pride in their school systems, and they want their school systems to be the best it can be. So having said all that, I've never met one of those county commissions that still didn't take some pride in their school system. And I'll get off my soapbox on that. So I guess that's why that we do have these huge gaps statewide. Any other questions? We've been going, what, an hour maybe?
Now, you gonna make transition into Tessa, or?
Yeah, well, we have.
Yeah.
About all I know of Tessa.
Okay.
And I think, I'm probably saying more than I should, I think school districts are frustrated that they don't have figures yet. I think that's, if you're talking to any of those folks, I think you've probably heard that. So if they've told you they don't have figures, I'm here to confirm they don't have figures. Now, they might be running their own figures, but there's nothing official out yet.
And Shannon and I were in a room of 150 county commissioners, and no one had numbers, and no one knew what we're going to do for budget.
Any insights as to why it takes so many iterations and so long?
I asked Mr. Slater just last week in his office. He said he wished he had the answers to what Tissa was going to bring, and he's the vice chair of the education committee.
Any thoughts, Wesley? It sounds like this has been going on for
Well, they
years.
just blessed the rules for Tissa, so there's this whole rule-making period, so those just got blessed. So I think the department, in all fairness to them, they had to wait till those rules got blessed by the Senate and the House to move forward. But in all fairness to them, most school systems wouldn't have gotten their first BEP estimate until April. But this is different, it's something new, people kind of want to know earlier than that, so they've made a commitment to try to get the numbers out before April, and hopefully they will. So, but moving forward in the next years, you probably won't get your first estimate until April. And it's a product of, they're counting those the kids at the schools. Schools got to get out before they know what the enrollment count is to put into the formula to give y'all a number.
So this is my first time as county commissioner. Thankfully. No, I'm kidding. So what if this comes around, and like you said, July, we're ready to, should have had the budget approved, and we don't even have our hard numbers in? Is the state going to say, nope, you got to go by last year's budget? Or, is there any leeway in that? Because, not to drag you off in the weeds, but we've kind of been held hostage before in the county because of GPS and school buses and all that stuff, and football game happened, and everything was good to go. But, are we looking at a possible situation like that again, or?
Well, you all set the revenue, and David asked me to mention this earlier. It's always been this way, where the county commission sets the revenue. Now, this blew up a handful of years ago in Sullivan County. They had a school board that sent over revenue estimates with their expenditure estimates, and they weren't good numbers. And there was a lawsuit related to that, and the comptroller's office said, look, the commission sets the revenue, but they codified that even clearer in a law that said, the commission, you set the revenue. So my advice would be just go ahead and set the revenue and.
At the known 126 and keep trucking.
Yeah.
See, everybody's estimating that's gonna be more than 126.
Mm-hmm.
And your only requirement is to do at least as much revenue as last year. So your budget is legal as long as you're at least providing as much local revenue as last year.
That's what I was wondering. Not knowing, and come into this bond, it sounds like we've got some bridges to
Well,
cross.
we wouldn't want to do anything, disastrous for the
Right.
school system. I wouldn't, but, we do have until,
September.
October. September.
It would have state
Yeah,
approval, September 1.
Okay.
The first of September 1, unless you get state's approval.
Yeah, y'all have,
August 31.
you used to have to pass a continuation resolution every year.
Mhm.
They passed this law a few years ago, and it gives you an automatic 2-month continuation.
Okay.
Our private act does too.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, we put in our private act too. But basically, you gotta have the state approval and prove for some reason you can't to get one more month, you don't have to prove it.
They've only extended a county to September 30th one time, and it was Roane County, and they had a new property assessor who...
That was a mess.
They didn't know what they were doing, going through reappraisal, and the state had to come in and help them with reappraisal, so they extended them 1 month to get their budget done. But yeah, you've got a continuation resolution automatic for...
In regard to that instructional block, I only have one question about any of this. If a school system happened to not be very judicious in decisions they made, and maybe were really heavy administratively, that is boosting that area up, regardless of what teachers might benefit from. Is that not,
Well, what they're doing and what the formula does is they're unrelated. So they're generating money in that instructional box.
and that's what I'm saying,
If
so,
they're spending it on on administration, then, more on administration than teachers, then yeah, it would be
So-
more to administration.
so it would be even more important for our local people and the school board to realize that it really would be penalizing classroom teachers to become top-heavy with administration.
Yeah,
In a way.
the way the math would work,
Right.
yeah.
So, and to piggyback off of that, if a district was to have, I don't know, 21 maybe, counselors at the district level, and then one at each school, that 21 at the administrative level is eating up that trickle-down effect. And that's what I was getting to earlier, that money actually probably is never seen in the classroom because the admin is absorbing it at the top.
Yeah. Anything else? I feel like I've jumped all around, and y'all probably...
Have you seen anything that, there is, a required amount for teacher pay? Because early on, I was following that, but I've lost track of that now.
Like a individual teacher, or...
Like a base pay.
Yeah, there's a state minimum salary schedule that the State Board of Education sets every year.
Did we get a new set for the TISA?
So it will be unrelated to TISA, but when they pump new money in salaries, they're
Yeah,
gonna...
that's what I'm thinking.
They're
They're
gonna
gonna pump it.
increase that beginning amount. Let's see if I can, actually, I was gonna show you this is...
I mean, I was really happy for the teachers when I saw the increase. I was just wondering if I saw the right number.
I'm gonna show you all the Department of Ed's webpage. You can see school budgets, school financials out here. You can see their MOE test. You can see all that out there on the video. Let's see if we can pull up the minimum. Sorry. I'm not sure what the minimum amount is right now. I know the governor's wanting it to be, what, 50,000? Is that his goal? I'm not finding it quickly. It's out here on their webpage if you're interested in trying to find it.
Was that money last year, when they did it, back under GP?
Well, I can send it to you if I find it here.
When you find it, if you could send us the pathway, so that we can figure it out for
Yeah,
ourselves.
that should be my
that'd
knowledge GP from now on. They're always in the West, the state has all the my books out of it, the way they see it in the county. Or, Marty, they're issuing, because they will buy buses and food.
School systems.
Well, what else?
Yeah, they do something else with it, please.
Anything, have I completely confused you? I think.
No, it's clear.
I think if you took some of it, if you feel confused now, don't feel bad, because it's probably pretty common, but I think if you took a few minutes to review some of this information, it's gonna become a little bit more clear to you. If I came back and did it again, it'd probably be all about it.
Is it possible, you know, now that they have got the rules together, that you could come back, and we'll just,
I could,
on that?
now, they have plans to do a big series of training with the State Department of Education. I don't know where they're at on that. I'm sure they're waiting until these rules got finalized. I know they had put out an RFP and asked companies to reply to that RFP and do the training on this. So I'm assuming that's coming, which I'll probably attend and try to learn everything.
And then will you come train us?
Yeah. But I think they're going to invite commissions as well, is my understanding. So I think you all will get the invite to go to one of these regional trainings. I'll probably be there with y'all trying to learn as well.
Wesley, would it be beneficial to us, or is it too early in the game plan to have someone like Mary Ann come? And because Mary Ann was my finance director here in Sumner County when I was director of schools, and she has a close attachment to us.
When I spoke to Mary Ann, she said, let her know if you need anything. She's been doing so many things like this across the state, so I don't want to put words in her mouth, but yeah, I think that would be great, because she is the person that knows what's going on. She would probably, I don't know that she could tell you everything before she's supposed to tell it, but she'll tell you everything she could. I think a lot of Mary Ann, she's really sharp. Well, I've enjoyed it.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
You come out and showing us all this, answering our questions especially. Does anybody else have anything good for the cause?
Anybody that wants credit, let me know.
Mine is just a public comment, and it's just, you might want to talk with your attorneys, but it's my understanding that special meeting agendas are not allowed to be amended, because then it violates the notice of special meeting.
Was there a special call?
Well, don't call me that.
It needs to be changed.
Also, was a special call?
Just a meeting date. I think. I think it was just a meeting date.
It's still a decision. I mean, you guys could talk with your attorney, but you could do a special meeting notice for the next meeting, and then have on that agenda saying that.
This was a special meeting.
I don't think so.
What was supposed to be on the commission?
What was on the call? Was the whole agenda on the call?
She had it A1.
Yeah, I made it 4A1.
Usually, maybe think about this, Eric, and see what you think. Generally, like, everything else was on here on the call. So if there's a question about setting the date, in the past, the chairman's already set the date, voting for the chair was on the call, then Bob could set the date. Could we just go back and strike setting the date and then let Robert set the date, which is has the same effect anyway? Get us back within the call, and it's in question. Because this is in the full call right here, is what we're saying. If you're okay, can we just strike? Because usually the chairman says that anyway, then you can just go back and set the we strike it out and we're back with them.
I'll just make sure that we have the meeting day. As long as it appeases the masses. Okay.
Who is, Chairman, is what I
You
would
need a motion.
probably consider
Not as I said, I think it's just gonna be struck.
is just,
Oh,
okay.
anybody want to move that we strike that from the agenda?